welcome to another episode of the Property Voice podcast. My name is Richard Brown, and as always, it's a pleasure to have you join me again on the show today. Well, today is going to be a little bit different. I'm recording this in front of my laptop. I've got a presentation I'm going to talk you through. It's been recorded and you can watch it on the YouTube channel, the Property Voice YouTube channel. So it's all a bit experimental this week. Hopefully it may not make any sense actually if you're listening on the podcast as normal, but we'll just see how this goes and see if you like it. But I thought you might want to see something as well as hear something, so I want to give you an alternative in terms of presentation. Today's theme really, I guess, is all about, well, it's been a long time actually since I've updated you on me and what's going on in my world as an investor and developer. And so it's a Soundbite episode about the diary of the property investor as of September 2019. The last time I did this was actually December 2018. So it's been a bit of a while since I've updated you. Obviously quite a lot has happened in between, which we'll talk about. But without further ado, let's get on into the next segment now. So if you're watching, you'll see there's a slide in front of you with December 2018, and that was basically an extract of what I was up to or what I got through in the course of a year in 2018. I'm just going to briefly summarize it because obviously I would have covered this back in December. Just so we got some context though, there was a number of flip projects I was doing last year, and whilst I was investing in 3 different countries, most of the projects I was working on were in fact single family home types of properties. There were a couple of HMOs in there as well, but they were at the smaller end of the scale essentially. And but I did start 2 commercial conversion projects during the course of the year. And as you'll see, that's developed a bit over the course of this year. There was some, we called it multi-million pounds in JV and private financing, and you can perhaps hear a little bit about how that's developed. I worked with some earn and learn investors. As I say, it was a record year in terms of client engagement. I launched my second book, which is #PropTech. Of course, there was lots of content that was shared as well here on the podcast and elsewhere, and a growing audience. And I launched the TPV, or the Property Voice Apprentice Program as well. So just a quick recap really of what it was looking like as of last December. If we fast forward 9 months, we're into September 2019, of course, when you're listening to me. And just a quick snapshot really of what I've been up to basically during the course of this year to date. So it's around about a 9-month period of time. And there's approximately 4.7 million in active development projects that are underway at the moment. If I should have written down how many sites, I think it's roughly 7 sites or 7 projects of that sort of magnitude that I'm actively working on right now. And there's roughly 7.4 million in terms of assets under management as well. So growth and scale has been the order of the day actually. And you'll hear a little bit more about that in a little while too. To help fund that growth, I'm managing over 5 million in joint venture and private investor financing. So big responsibility, but obviously with such growth comes, funding requirements. So very pleased to have that with me. And of course, there's institutional finance behind that as well. I'm working with a handful of private mentoring clients. I guess I've got busier as an investor and developer, so I've got less time really to work with larger numbers of people. So I've kind of refined my offering a little bit. I only work in certain ways now, and I'm quite selective in all fairness with who I work with, but I'm very pleased with the clients that I'm working with right now because I like to see a lot of change and transition or even turnaround in them, and that gives me a bit of a buzz even today. So I'm happy to carve out time to do that. I've started recording the audiobook version of the book, PropTech, as I mentioned, PropTech, a guide to how property technology is changing how we live, work and invest. And besides the audiobook version of that, I've also got 2 other books, book projects rather, in process as well. Just a bit of an alert, I'm going to give, there's going to be an update of the Property Investor Toolkit book, and a bit of exciting development really is going to come out of that as a theme, but I won't spoil too much by sharing it right now, but tease you a little bit with that. And then there's a property financing book I've been working on for some time, which I really need to pull my finger out. And these are going to be backed up by audiobooks as well. So I think there's a bit of a concerted effort really to get some content out there in terms of books. There's been a number of in-person meetups, I guess you'd call them. There's been a couple of working dinners tackling a specific theme, and some more intimate one-to-one coffee meetups as well. I'm going to drill down into that in a second. I guess I've been a little bit more visible on the other side of the mic or the other side of the camera. For example, I took part in the Investor Fuse podcast, which was it's probably given me the encouragement or maybe the boot up the backside to do a bit more video content myself, and hence this experimental version of the podcast this week. So it might not be the best version, might not be the most polished and edited and all the rest of it, but it's the first, okay? So be kind if you want to say anything about it, but go over to the YouTube channel, hopefully it'll be there, and I hit all the right buttons and it works. So yeah, there was the podcast dinner. There was the Investor Fuse podcast chat, which I shared with you last week anyway, or at least an extract of that. Featured in YPN magazine, again on the other side. So I normally have my own column, but I was interviewed on behalf of YPN, feature on the USA investing, which is another market that I'm active in. And I decided to do something a little bit different here, and I accept it. I often get invited to speak on the property circuit, as it were, but this time I accepted. I rarely accept these invitations because normally I do my own content and my own meetings. But Anthony Boyce up in Darlington was very persuasive, and he's very generous as well. And he invited me to come up and speak at his event. So I'm going up. And if you happen to be in Darlington or the Northeast on Friday, the 11th of October, come along and we can meet up. And then there's a couple of podcast series, of course. You'd probably be very well aware of that. We had the Women in Property series and quickly followed by the Property Heavyweight series. And I guess what's in work in progress right now is Around the Regions series. And yeah, I'm kind of working on that, trying to figure out the best way of doing it and obviously how to make it work logistically. But that's in the process. So we'll see how that turns out. And there's going to be a bit more video content as well. You probably see as a result of this presentation. It's a first foray really for me in terms of that type of content. So I'd be interested in your feedback really. And I guess finally, in terms of what's happened over the course of this year, there's now 3 apprentice programs which have both launched and either completed or are partway through. So that's 12 apprentices who've now been through that program. It's been refined each time. There's now a little community actually of apprentices who've gone on really to work in a mastermind group that they actually chose to develop. And I guess there's something of an ecosystem that's emerging as well. So that's pretty exciting. So I'm really looking forward to see how that unfolds as well. So that was the overview. If you're watching, you'll see there's a table in front of you which essentially summarizes some of the major projects that I'm working on right now. I can actually probably count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7, I was right. So it summarizes, I won't bore you by talking about all of them, but essentially there's commercial conversion projects, there are HMOs, there are new build, and there's a couple of flips and BRR type projects as well, mainly in the USA actually. So as well as a couple in the UK, but USA for some of the smaller transactions and a couple of larger ones in the UK as well. When I totted it up, it's about 45. I didn't mean to hit the slide go there, so there we go. That tells you how good I am with this sort of thing. There we go. So we have to move on. So there was 45 rental units, and from memory, it was 4.7 million pounds of projects under development. So if you're watching, you'll see that it's flashed up a slide which is growing the team. So in addition to the projects, obviously you need to, and the financing for those projects, you need to develop a team. And I'm going to come back to this topic again a little bit later, but as of the time of recording, I now have a project and contracts manager, site foreman, lettings and property manager, development manager, some site inspectors, back office support, and a bunch of external advisors, including consultants, service providers, of which there are planning, architects, surveyors, legal, finance, accounting, and so on. So yeah, it's gone a bit crazy in terms of the people. My model is, we're not yet a grown-up company where we've got a massive office and we've got a bunch of people. We're leaner than that, and so we operate in a more remote or virtual way. But again, perhaps I'll talk about that another time. But just thought I'd elaborate really that with growth in terms of projects also comes growth in terms of people. So that was another big learning really and developments over the course of the year. I did touch on the in-person meetups, didn't I, a little bit earlier? Well, the theme of this year has been 2 types of meetup. There's mastermind dinner dates, as I call them. They're kind of working dinners. And then there are one-to-one coffee meetups where they're more personal and intimate and just a short meetup, literally, where we sit and have coffee and talk about various things, hopefully with a bit of a purpose rather than just come and pick the brains type of thing. Just a bit of an overview. In February, I had a dinner date, mastermind dinner, which was about your property challenges. That seemed to go down well. So since then, in August, we did one on leverage, growth, and scale. And that also went down well. So I'm doing another one in October, 16th of October, in fact, if you'd like to come along, which is all about using a SAS or a SIP pension to invest in property. So using pension funds. So that even if you don't have a SAS or a SIP, but you maybe have some pension funds, not really doing much for you, yeah, come and talk. We'll share. We're not financial advisors, not pension advisors, so we're coming at this from a layperson's perspective. There's going to be 3 people on the panel who've all done this themselves, and me, of course, who I've actually utilized pension funds in my investments and developments. So you're going to get real world type of dialogue here rather than salesmanship, if you like, in terms of pensions and that kind of thing. So in addition, there was a couple of coffee meetups that I had in August, and they were very well attended. In fact, there's a link, I'll put it in the show notes, but there was a link to the 11 unique stories, if you like, from the people that I met over the 2 coffee meets. So probably planning to do another one again in October. I haven't quite planned the date yet, but it's probably going to be close to the 16th of October. So watch this space. And if you're interested in events that I do, so the TPV Live, as I call it, all the events are first released on the TPV Meetup page or the Eventbrite page that we have, and the links are in the show notes or in the video presentation on YouTube, so you can go and look those up as well. So I kind of hinted a little bit, haven't I, about last week and also this week about maybe challenges that have come with growth. I've written the first point here is growing pains. And so with growth comes growing pains, bringing the people in, bringing the systems in, bringing the funding in, keeping control of everything, managing your time. There's a lot that really goes along. And in my particular case, it isn't just the developments or my portfolio of rentals, the developments, which is effectively what's the pipeline. But I've also got some investor services like my property deal tip service, for example, or for a select number of clients, we kind of do a consultancy service to find opportunities, I'll just say that. But also the knowledge sharing. So whether that's in terms of content, such as a podcast like you're listening to now, or indeed private mentoring clients. So I'm mixing all of this together. I'm bedding in people and systems, looking for funding to grow. So yeah, we all have problems and challenges is my point. It's just different levels and scale, I suppose. So that's been an interesting development, especially as I reflect over the course of this year. Well, that was it really. I just wanted to give you a bit of an update on what I'm up to over the course of this year. You haven't heard a lot from me. There's been a couple of people who said that. Carl, thank you for saying so. I just thought I'd put a stake in the ground really and just give you a bit of an update on what's been going on with me personally. Obviously, there's a bit more depth I could go into, but I just wanted to highlight that for now. So if you're watching, you'll see that there's a slide in front of you that says if you want more information. This is where I kind of do the wrap up really. The notes are going to be at the website, thepropertyvoice.net. If you want to talk to me about anything from today's show or property investing and developing more generally, you can email me, podcast@thepropertyvoice.net. There's also a few other links of how you can find me on Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn. They're in the show notes as well. So I'm contactable basically in a multi variety of ways. So I guess that's all that there is to say this week. And so thank you very much for listening. And until next time on the Property Voice podcast, it's ciao ciao.